What is going on, guys? Jack here, and the Premier League season is almost upon us, and I thought we'd do something a little bit special and a little bit different to mark the occasion. Here in front of you, we're going to be going through my Fantasy Premier League team. If you've never played Fantasy Premier League, I recommend giving it a go. It's usually a bit of a laugh. Get a few friends in a league, see how you get on. You can join my league as well. I'll have a code on screen right now. If you want to enter this in on the FPL website, you can go and do it. And I thought today we'd just have a look through my team. Now, I will start this video off by saying that I am an absolute noob at Fantasy Premier League. Obviously, I know a little bit about football. I know some of the underlying strategies that people have. But at the same time, I like to just sometimes take silly punts. I don't play this with any super logic. There's a little bit of planning that goes into it. But compared to some experts out there, you may cringe as you look at some of my suggestions. But I hold on to the fact that by doing this somewhat stupid approach 2 years ago, after the first game week, I was like 190 something in the world. So I might be completely useless, but I consider myself a master of the punt. So you're probably wondering, Jack, master of the punt, official title, maybe pending. What's your team? So let's take a look through it, shall we? So we have to start with one obvious player in the middle. It's going to be Mo Salah. It's Mo Salah, highest point scorer the last 2 years, if I'm not mistaken. I think last year he got 21 goals and 11 assists or something crazy. He is the most expensive option in the game. He's still a midfielder, though. I feel like he was the first name I got in on the sheet. I just didn't want to get rid of him after that. And after I added in Salah, kind of what a lot of people like to do is they'll get into very, very good premium players and they'll use those to rotate the captaincy. So I kind of felt like doing a similar thing, and I was sat there thinking, which striker did I really want to get? In the end, I've ended up going with Harry Kane here, and I've gone for Kane for a couple of reasons. I know he traditionally has a really poor start to the season, but this year there wasn't a World Cup. Nations League feels like it happened months ago now. He's had plenty of time to recover. And I don't hate Spurs' opening games to the season. They've obviously got a fairly easy game against Villa. They've got a few tricky ones, but I still kind of think he will be their main goal-scoring threat this season. There isn't really an alternative to him. Obviously, he missed the end of last season through injury, but I still do really, really rate him. Anyway, when it came to the defence, a little bit of a dilemma here. I wanted to get in some Liverpool defenders because last year they scored so highly. The likes of Trent Alexander-Arnold, Robertson, Van Dijk, Alisson in goal as well, of course. In the end, the first player who I went for in the defence was Trent Alexander-Arnold. At £7 million, I like him. The reason I've gone for him over, say, Robertson, who's also £7 million and a fullback option, is simply because Trent does take some set pieces for Liverpool. He occasionally is on free kicks, will take the corners from time to time, and I feel like his set-piece threat is just a little bit better than Andy Robertson's, but still really like him. As I said, though, Liverpool defence was very, very stacked, and being the biased Liverpool fan that I am, I wanted to get more Liverpool in there, but I don't know, I wasn't really feeling the £6.5 million Van Dijk or the £7 million Robertson. So in the end, I've actually gone with Joel Matip to be my second Liverpool defender and my third Liverpool player. Of course, you can only have 3 more Liverpool players, so we've got the bias out of the way early on. But I do anticipate Liverpool to do very well defensively. Matip and Joe Gomez are going to be competing to be the player who plays alongside Van Dijk. It's definitely a little bit of a risky transfer, this one, but Matip did end the season as that partner for Van Dijk. He was in the Champions League final playing for Liverpool. I feel like to start the season at least, it's Matip's position to lose. Also with my team, I am going to be probably playing a Game Week 8 wild card. If you don't know, you have the ability to change your entire team. Game Week 8 comes just after or before an international break. So by that point there, 8 weeks into the season, 8 matches in, we should have a good idea for who the starting players are for various teams. Anyway, let's talk about the goalkeepers. With goalkeepers, I wanted to get in more Man City options here than I ended up getting in my final team. I did look at getting in Ederson plus a £4 million goalkeeper. Just as a set and forget, play Ederson every single game week. It kind of made sense in my head. But actually, I was looking at some of the more budget options. Normally, I like to go for a player like a Fabianski or a Pickford, but those kind of players, their prices were all up at £5.5 million. So in the end, I've elected to go for a duo of £4.5 million goalkeepers who don't rotate perfectly, but I think at least in the first 8 game weeks, they rotate well enough to justify picks. So the first of those players is Matt Ryan. Brighton have some fairly easier games to start the season. There's a few tricky ones in there, but I don't know. I feel like he makes sense as a budget pick. I know a lot of people have been looking at getting in Matt Ryan. I will also say that I feel like in getting in two £4.5 million goalkeepers that can rotate semi-okayly, it should hopefully leave me in a position where I have a bit more money for higher up the pitch. So the other goalkeeper I went for, and the goalkeeper whose transfer really swayed me into deciding that this was the approach to take, is Tim Heaton. Of course, he is not playing for Burnley anymore. He has moved to Aston Villa, who, despite playing Tottenham on the first game of the season, actually have pretty kind fixtures throughout the rest of pre-season. Or not pre-season, the early season. So it made sense, I feel like, to get these two in. I don't feel like these are going to score me a hell of a lot of points, but I'm hoping that between them on a semi-consistent basis, we're going to be getting a few clean sheets here and there. Definitely, picking up Heaton as a Villa pick is perhaps a little bit of an unnecessary risk. Anyway, we go up into the midfield again now. Obviously, the team's looking a little more padded out. I ended up going with Richarlison as my second most expensive midfielder option at 8 million. I do feel like he is going to be playing as more of a striker this season for Everton. Another player who I looked at quite a lot was Iosi Perez, but I ended up not going for him. He is £1.5 million cheaper, but I just like Everton's opening fixtures a little bit more. Equally, Everton look quite keen to sign a wide player. I know they've been linked with Malcolm, who has since moved on to Zenit St. Petersburg, and also Zaha, who of course remains a Crystal Palace player. With those transfers, being looked at, I can see Richarlison not being deployed out wide as frequently and him being played as more of an out-and-out striker. Tosun hasn't really impressed me. Calvert-Lewin, I think, will get game time here and there, but I feel like Richarlison, out of those three players, is perhaps most likely to lock down the opening striking position. Equally, if he ends up playing out wide, it's not exactly the end of the world. I think Everton will get a decent amount of goals. And Everton, to start the season, don't actually play any teams within the top six for a little while. And then I think they only played 2 of the top 6 before December. So they could be a longer term fit. And, depending on how they start the season, I might well, with my wild card, look to get a few more Everton players in. Anyway, alongside Richarlison, another one of my punts, a player who I'm sure a few people will have in their team. At £6 million, Ross Barkley looks like a really good value for money player. I am quite keen on Chelsea's squad in general. I think there's some really, really good players there. Willian at 7 million was another player I toyed around with the idea of, bringing in. However, in the end, I just decided that Barkley was the man for me. He's had a very good pre-season, and I know he is going to be competing with Mason Mount in the kind of midfield for that perhaps the same position, but I think to start the year he's most likely to lock it down. Equally, he's also looking like he might be on penalties this year for Chelsea. Obviously, with Chelsea being under Lampard's leadership this year, it's a bit difficult to know exactly how they're going to play, and I don't want to invest into Chelsea players too soon, but in terms of value for money, Ross Barkley just looked like the standout player to me. Anyway, taking a step back to the defence, let's look at the rest of the back five. The first of these 3 players that we have remaining is Zinchenko. Looks like he is going to start the season at left back for Manchester City. He is the only Manchester City player in my team, and I wish I could get in a few more, but the rotation does scare me a little bit. I feel like defensively it's a little bit unclear exactly how people are going to lie. I did look at Laporte at £6.5 million, but actually Zinchenko at £5.5 million to me at least made the most sense. I know Angelino has been, signed from PSV as a backup left-back option, and Mendy being out injured, it's going to be between Zinchenko and Angelino for this position. But actually Zinchenko, for me, I think is going to be the player who starts the season. He ended the season playing very, very regularly. Obviously, Mendy is out injured. Angelino signed from PSV, going to take a little while to get used to Pep's system. And at £5.5 million, it's a relatively low price for a player who could be part of one of the best defences in the Premier League this year. Anyway, there might be a trend emerging here, because our next defender that we have is another player who I don't imagine many people are going to have in their team. It is Kyle Walker-Peters for £5 million. Obviously, Kieran Trippier has made the move to Atletico Madrid, and as a result, there are 3 right-backs within the Spurs side fighting it out for this position. Those being Walker-Peters, Aurier, and also Foyth. Now, Foyth has gone off with an ankle injury. I don't know at the time of recording if it's been confirmed how serious that's going to be, but he already missed a lot of pre-season on international duty with Argentina. Aurier was at the African Cup of Nations. He had hand surgery. I believe he's back in light training. This is a position where I feel like this £5 million player will be whoever the right back is to start the season. So I'm kind of sat right now waiting to hear what Pochettino's got to say in the coming week. With that in mind, it looks right now at least like Walker-Peters is most likely to start. Will he be able to nail down this position is a little bit of an unknown, but I guess the beauty of having, all three of these options at £5 million is once we know exactly which player looks most likely to start on a regular basis, I can just invest into that player if I wish. But I don't know, I feel like a £5 million defender playing for one of the teams who I do think will finish top 4 this year is just too good an opportunity to pass up. Anyway, alongside these 4 defenders, I did want to get in a player who is going to play regularly. I know a lot of people look at Kelly, Crystal Palace at £4 million as a player to bring in. I ended up going with a slightly more expensive Crystal Palace defender in Ward. Of course, Wan-Bissaka has moved to Manchester United. At the time of recording this, Palace haven't signed a replacement fullback. Ward looks like he might be given the nod to start in this position on the regular. £4.5 million just looks like a good little option. Not going to be relying on him too much, I don't think. However, if worse comes to worse, and a few of the punts that I do have in this team who aren't guaranteed starters don't end up playing, he's the kind of player who I hope can come in and just score me a few points on a semi-regular basis. Anyway, in the striker department, let's talk about what we went for here, because the first player I went for is one that is definitely template. A lot of people are going to have this guy in their team. It is, of course, Greenwood of Manchester United. I know they have been linked with Mandzukic in pre-season, but I feel like at £4.5 million, he looks like a player who might be given an opportunity to shine in the first team. At the same time, if he doesn't play, I'm not going to be overly upset. Of all the players in my squad, he is the one player who perhaps is the least likely to play. Might make the odd appearance on off the bench, but I don't anticipate me playing him too much. In the end, he is a bit of bench fodder who has the potential to perform, and if he does hit form, if people start jumping on the bandwagon, his price is only ever going to go up. Alongside him, though, I did want to get in another premium striking option. I was at one point looking at the likes of Rashford, Lacazette, even slightly lower down at Joshua King, but actually as I formed my team and the budget started to make itself, I ended up going with Aubameyang for £11 million. Which does take me to 3 premium players, which is a little bit unusual. Most people I've seen, they'll go with Salah, maybe Aguero, maybe Sterling. I did look at having Aguero up top of my team, but I just couldn't quite make it work. And I do feel like between Salah, Kane and Aubameyang, I have 3 very, very good options who do rotate for captaincy quite nicely. Equally, if one of them doesn't perform that well, or if there's a few players who look like they're going to be the best players all season, I can quickly get rid of whichever one of my 3 more expensive players isn't performing so well and quite quickly jump on bandwagons of teams and players who look like they're really going to do well. As I said, players like Willian wouldn't be an option far from my mind. Perez as well at 6.5 million is one I'm considering. And, equally, if there was a cheaper striker option who finds some form, maybe I'd go for them. If a Jimenez of last season was to crop up this year, it would be something to go for. But I didn't really want to take that risk too soon. I know a lot of people have got either Wilson or King of Bournemouth. I did look at both of those as well, and in the end I actually ended up taking one of my midfielder options to be a Bournemouth player. I've gone with Jordan Ibe at £5 million. I only had £10.5 million left for my 2 midfielder spots here, so I wasn't exactly going to be able to bring in the most expensive of options. But with Bournemouth having a mini injury crisis in the midfield, and Ibe having played regularly through pre-season, I do feel like at £5 million he's perhaps a punt worth taking. Again, he's one of those less likely to play regularly, but if he is given a chance, I could see him taking it. Bournemouth starts the season is notoriously easy. I say that, famous last words, but I know a lot of people are putting high stock in Bournemouth players. They've got a few injuries, of course. Brooks out longer term now. I am aware that they have signed Bournemouth a winger just this week. However, with him missing much of pre-season, I do anticipate Ibe to be given the nod to start the season at least. And at £5 million, I feel like he is one of the best players in that bracket. Anyway, the last player we have is McGinn of Aston Villa. Similarly to Heaton, I just like Aston Villa's opening games. He was a key part of their midfield. At £5.5 million, I feel like he does offer slightly better value than Grealish, who was another player who I looked at in this area of the pitch. Again, not anticipating him to score really highly. I feel like between him and Ibe, I'm looking for them to chip in with points here and there. To start the season, I think I will be starting with Ibe and then McGinn on the bench. But these two players who I feel like can rotate semi-well. Obviously not exactly the most expensive options, but with me going for 3 very, very expensive options higher up the pitch, it had to give somewhere. And I feel like this midfield pairing, along with perhaps some of my defensive options where I've tried to cut corners with the likes of Zinchenko and Matip over, say, Van Dijk and Laporte, I feel like it's just a risk that I am willing to take. It may backfire spectacularly, but I do hold some hope that this strategy with the 3 premium players might work for me. Anyway, guys, this is how my team is going to line up for game week 1. I'm going to go with Ryan in goal. This first game week, not the kindest on my 2 goalkeeper pairings that I've gone for, but Watford away, I do feel like Ryan might get me a point or 2 there. You know, if he plays, fantastic. I guess my hopes this opening game week are a little higher up the pitch. In the defence, we're going to go with Trent, Matip, Zinchenko and Walker-Peters. All of them playing at home. Anticipate us to get some nice points there. Obviously, it's going to be key to see how frequently Zinchenko and Walker-Peters play this year. Hopefully they do play in these opening games, at least at the time of recording. It looks very, very likely. Ahead of them, I have had to put Barkley in the team despite the fact they're playing Manchester United away from home. At the same time, against Solskjaer's United team, it's hard to know just how defensively they are going to line up. I'm hoping that Barkley, can do a job there for me. Richarlison, Salah and Ibe make up the rest of the midfield. Salah is going to be given the captaincy for that opening game of the Premier League season on Friday night against Norwich City. And up top, we've got Harry Kane and Aubameyang. Kane at home against newly promoted Aston Villa, hoping he can bag a goal or 2 there. And Aubameyang away from home against Newcastle, a team who are a little bit of an enigma. I've got my eye on a few Newcastle players who may well make it into my team as the game weeks go on. But at least to start the year, I feel like there's an air of uncertainty still. Not exactly sure how Steve Bruce is going to set up the team just yet. And as a result, I'm hoping that Aubameyang, even if he is having to play a slightly wider position to the left of Lacazette with Pepe coming into the team, can still do a pretty good job for us. Anyway, guys, I do hope you've enjoyed this video. It's something very, very different. Not going to claim to be a fantasy football guru by any means, but I felt like this was just a fun little video to put together. If you have enjoyed it, do drop a like on it. Maybe it's something we'll do on a more regular basis. As I've mentioned already, if you do want to join my league, there is a link in the description with the code, or it'll be shown on screen now as well. Get involved, join it. I'm going to try and come up with some prizes. I will tweet out my final Game Week 1 team before the Premier League season starts, because knowing me, I will panic and change 1 or 2 things. If you've got any thoughts or opinions on my team, let me know them. Let me know your team down below. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys soon. It is me, Jack, and I'll talk to you guys in a bit. I'm out.